The Force is old and full of shadows.
The office smells of ozone and burning cloth. 3 Jedi Masters lie on the floor. Aegon Kolar closest to the door. Kit Fisto near the shattered remains of a display case. Ceci Tian face down across the Chancellor's ceremonial rug. Their lightsabers are cold. The marble beneath them is not. The windows behind the Chancellor's desk frame the entire Coruscant skyline in dying afternoon gold. A city of 1 trillion lives going on, oblivious, while the fate of every one of them narrows to the width of a single purple blade. Mace Windu stands over Sheev Palpatine with that blade at the old man's throat. Palpatine's face has dissolved. There is no other word for it. The skin has gone gray and cracked. The architecture of dignified statecraft collapsed inward into something that was always underneath. Something the years of performance could no longer contain. His eyes are yellow. His mouth is open. He is screaming. Not words, not coherent language, just the raw sound of a man whose mask has finally broken from the inside. Everything that ever went wrong in the galaxy has converged in this room. In this second, at the tip of this purple blade. Then the doors open. Anakin Skywalker reads the scene in 2 heartbeats, and understands it entirely wrong. The Chancellor, the only man who had promised to teach him what no Jedi would, is on the floor with a blade to his throat. Mace Windu's face is controlled, implacable, the face of a man who has already made his decision and is one breath from executing it. The dead masters on the floor, the screaming. Padmé, the name detonates through him before thought. Padmé will die. He's the only one who knows how to. His hand finds his lightsaber without conscious instruction. The hilt is in his grip. His arm is already rising. The blue blade ignites with a snap hiss that cuts through Palpatine, screaming like a blade through silk, and Mace Windu's eyes cut to him, and Anakin Skywalker is 19 steps into the worst mistake of his life. Something happens. It has no physical analog. Mid-swing, mid-breath, mid the most catastrophic decision of his life, something strikes Anakin Skywalker from the inside. Not a blow. Not a vision. A collision. The 22-year-old with the ignited blade and the screaming panic in his chest meets something arriving from the opposite direction at terminal velocity. 45 years of accumulated memory, grief, loss, and hard-won ruin, carried by a soul that has already lived the full cost of this exact moment and paid it in full. His arm freezes. His free hand flies to his throat, expecting the collar, expecting the mask, expecting the rhythmic mechanical hiss-thum of a respirator that has breathed for him for 23 years in a life that hasn't happened yet. Instead, air. Real air. Warm, humid, Coruscant air, moving through real lungs expanding in a real chest. A real heartbeat against real ribs. He is 22 years old in a body that has never burned, and the ghost of the man he was going to become has just arrived wearing his face. The memories come in fragments, not linear. Cinematic, the suit, the weight of it. The permanent cold of the armor's inner lining against skin that never fully healed. A boy standing in a corridor on a battle station, looking at him with eyes that refused to stop believing. Father, the word in a young man's voice, carrying more mercy than the universe had any right to offer. A hand, his own hand, old and scarred, reaching up from a reactor shaft, and that same young man pulling him toward light he no longer remembered how to deserve. Then Padmé, not the Padmé who is alive 3 levels below him in this city right now. A different image, the one carved into the bedrock of the worst years of his life, her face twisted, hands at her throat, the force wrapped around her airways by his armored fist. His, no one else's. He spent 20 years telling himself it was Palpatine, the dark side, the war, the loss. He spent 20 years lying. He knows who was going to kill her. The knowledge doesn't arrive like revelation. It arrives like weight. Instantaneous and total and devastating, the full accounting, presented without mercy by the man he was going to become, to the man who still has time to choose otherwise. The lightsaber drops. It hits the marble floor with a sound like a bell. Anakin looks at Palpatine. The man on the floor is still screaming, still radiating a dark side so thick the air near him feels physically wrong, still performing the wounded innocent posture that has worked on every person who ever loved him. The yellow eyes find Anakin. They shift, recalibrating, hunting the lever, searching for the desperation that has always been there before. They find none. What Anakin Skywalker is looking at, stripped of the panic that always blurred his vision in Palpatine's presence, is a pathetic and manipulative old man who built his entire empire on a young person's terror of loss. Not a god. Not the most powerful being alive. A man who found one wound in one frightened boy and pressed on it for a decade, until the boy broke. The architecture of the greatest Sith conspiracy in a millennium, and at its center this small, cracked, screaming thing on the floor of its own office. Anakin's face is wet. He doesn't know when he started crying. He doesn't move to wipe it. His voice, when it comes, is barely above a whisper. Not because he is afraid. He is not afraid. He uses a whisper because he has no fury left to spare on volume. Fury requires uncertainty, requires the possibility that the target has power over you, and Palpatine has no power over him anymore. He had the power, and he spent it, and Anakin is standing in the debris of what that spending cost. You promised me you could save her. The words are flat. Not accusing. Simply true. You took her from me, old man. You. And no one else. A breath. Something like grief. Something past grief. Something he doesn't have a word for yet, because the language for surviving the dark side is still being developed in real time. Not this time. Palpatine's yellow eyes flash. His voice shifts registers, dropping the screaming, reaching for the sonorous authority that has commanded Senate floors for decades. Skywalker, I made you. You are nothing without. Anakin steps aside. The gesture is deliberate. Complete, unhurried, he clears Mace Windu's line of sight with the quiet precision of a man who has made a decision so thoroughly that the body executes it before the mind finishes framing it. He does not look at Mace when he does it. He does not need to. He looks at nothing in particular, at the space between his abandoned lightsaber and the window and the golden Coruscant skyline going to evening purple. He steps aside, and he waits. Mace Windu has not moved. His grip on the blade has not changed. His eyes have not left Palpatine. Tactical discipline is absolute and will remain absolute until this is finished. But something has happened inside the form, something that has no precedent in Mace Windu's 40 years of Vapad practice. The loop collapsed, not gradually, not under pressure. It collapsed the way a standing wave collapses when a second wave hits it from exactly the opposing angle. Instant. Total. Leaving nothing where there had been a river of dark side current a heartbeat before. And into the space where that current had been, something flooded through the most intimate empathic connection Vapad allows, a force signature unlike anything Mace Windu has ever felt in a living being. Not the composed serenity of a temple Jedi. Not the cold clarity of a trained master. Something rawer and stranger than either. The specific luminosity of a soul that walked through the absolute heart of darkness and came back purified by the transit. A soul that has already seen the cost of everything and chosen at the last possible moment to pay it differently. He felt everything, decades of the suit, the mechanical breathing, grief that stretched and calcified into cruelty, the son's hand, the dying father's face, the redemption that came exactly one breath before the end. He felt it all in a single heartbeat, the way Vapad permits and no other form allows. The distrust he has carried toward Anakin Skywalker since the boy's first day at the temple dissolves. Not reluctantly, not under protest. The way ice dissolves in sunlight. Completely, inevitably, because the conditions that sustained it no longer exist. His feet shift. A small adjustment, almost imperceptible. He moves to allow a flanking position. An instinctive tactical accommodation. He would not have made it 60 seconds ago. He speaks without looking at Anakin. Eyes on Palpatine. Blade steady. Stand with me, Skywalker. 4 words. Flat and direct, the way Mace Windu says everything that actually matters. Palpatine's eyes move between them. From the purple blade to the unarmed man standing beside it. From the Jedi Master who has never broken to the young knight who was supposed to break, who was designed to break, engineered to break across a decade of careful cultivation, and has not. Something moves through the Chancellor's expression. Rage, first, then calculation, old instinct, reaching for contingencies that do not exist. Then something Darth Sidious has not experienced in perhaps his entire existence. The specific understanding that a plan which has never failed is failing now. He is looking at a man who already survived, losing everything. He is looking at the ruin of the future he spent 1,000 years building toward. He is looking at 2 Jedi standing in his office, and he is, for the first time, simply out of moves. The yellow eyes hold that understanding in the dying afternoon light. Sheev Palpatine is not yet dead. He is not yet defeated. But he knows, in the way that only the most brilliant minds can know when they are finally cornered, that he is going to die in this room. Palpatine moves. There is no warning, no monologue, no final declaration, no moment of dignity before the end. One instant he is on the floor, cracked and yellow-eyed and cornered, and the next, the air in the room becomes a weapon. The Force lightning erupts from both hands simultaneously. Not a targeted strike. Not precision. A detonation, white-blue columns of concentrated dark side energy expanding outward from Palpatine's fingers like a pressure wave, filling the space between walls, designed to kill everything that breathes within its radius. He has done this before. It requires no aim. It requires only hatred and power, and Darth Sidious has more of both than any living being in this room can contest. He unleashes it at Anakin first. Because Anakin is the one who stepped aside. Because Anakin is the one whose face he wants to burn away. The windows crack. Every piece of loose material in the office, data cards, ceremonial objects. The shattered fragments of the display case Kit Fisto died against incinerates before it hits the floor. The Chancellor's desk scorches black and splits along its center. The air smells of burning marble. The sound is enormous, the kind that bypasses the ears and registers directly in the chest. Anakin Skywalker does not move. He does not reach for his lightsaber. He does not roll aside. He does not raise a defensive shield or drop to the floor, or do any of the 12 things a trained Jedi Knight should do when a Sith Lord turns his full power on them at close range. He raises his hands, both of them. Bare, flesh, unburned, palms forward, fingers open. Not the gesture of a man bracing for impact, but of a man receiving something he has already catalogued and set aside. The lightning hits his palms and stops, not redirected, not deflected into the floor or the ceiling or back along the beam. Stopped, contained within his grip the way a fist closes around a live thing, held there between his hands while it screams and pushes and finds nothing to push against. The light of it bleeds between his fingers in thin white lines. His arms are shaking, not from weakness, from the sheer quantity of power being funneled through them. The hair on his forearms stands. The air around his hands tastes of iron. The Force signature doing this is not the composed serenity the temple teaches. It was never built in a training cell or refined through years of meditation on Coruscant's upper levels. What Anakin Skywalker carries in this moment was forged in the specific crucible of having already survived the worst the dark side can offer. Not resisted it, not avoided it, but entered it fully, and come out the other side as something the darkness no longer has language for. The lightning has nothing to offer him. He has already been through everything it is. Palpatine registers this. His face, which has shown fury and calculation and cold intelligence across decades of absolute power, shows something underneath those now. Something small and animal and new. Anakin opens his hands. The lightning dissipates, not explosively, not with any drama. It draws inward, absorbed, and releases into the Force in the way that all things eventually release into the Force. Quietly, completely, without remainder. The smell of ozone thickens. The sound stops. He looks at Palpatine. His arms hang at his sides. No rage in his face, no triumph. The expression of a man who has walked through a fire that already burned him once and found it smaller than he remembered. I've already been through everything you can offer, Chancellor. His voice carries the same flatness it had before. Exhausted, bone deep. Final. I burned in it. I wore it. For 20 years. You have nothing left. Mace Windu moved while Palpatine's attention committed to Anakin. This is not narrated as heroism. It is narrated as precision, the execution of a decision that was already made before the lightning erupted, simply waiting for the geometry to become favorable. Mace Windu has been standing at the absolute limit of what Vapad can sustain for the better part of 10 minutes. He is not angry. He has not been angry since the form took hold. Anger is a fuel the form burns, and Mace burned through his reserves long before this moment. What remains is resolve, the clean, cool, irrevocable resolve of a man who has looked at the weight of 1,000 years of Sith manipulation and decided it ends here. The purple blade drives through Palpatine's chest from the left side. Heart, not throat, not the dramatic decapitation of a story's villain. The heart. Because Mace Windu is a precise man, and precision means certainty. And certainty means Darth Sidious does not survive the next 30 seconds regardless of anything else. Palpatine's scream is cut short, not silenced dramatically. Cut short, the sound simply stops, mid-note. The way a recording stops when the power is severed. The yellow eyes go dark. Not slowly. Not in stages. The specific biological instant when a nervous system ceases to be a nervous system. Registered most clearly in the eyes, which go from burning to simply absent between one breath and the next. The cracked gray face goes slack, the hands drop. The most powerful Sith Lord in a millennium dies on the floor of his own office. No final words. No last breath revelation. He dies the way he arranged for thousands of others to die, quickly, without ceremony, on ground he had others clean. The lightsaber goes with him, deactivating on its safety protocol as his grip releases. Mace withdraws his blade. Outside, something changes. It is not visible. It makes no sound. But both men feel it, a pressure that has been so constant for so long that it registered as background, as the ordinary texture of the world, lifts. The dark side presence that has been pressing against Coruscant's atmosphere for decades, building the way a storm front builds before it finally breaks. It breaks, not into catastrophe, into absence. The storm that never came. Through the cracked windows, over the debris-strewn sill, a single shaft of late afternoon light falls through a gap in the cloud cover that wasn't there a moment ago. It hits the marble floor at an angle, illuminates nothing important, just marble, and dust, and the ordinary detritus of a room where something terrible has ended. Mace deactivates his blade. The hum dies. The office is silent. Not the silence of held breath, the silence of aftermath. The specific quiet that arrives when a sound that has been present for so long it became inaudible, finally stops. Distant traffic from the city below, remote and irrelevant, the soft settling of a display case fragment that hadn't finished falling. Nothing else. Two Jedi stand in the room with the body of the most dangerous being, alive. Neither of them speaks. Anakin's legs stop holding him. It happens without drama. His knees don't buckle dramatically. His body doesn't collapse. They simply stop. The way a mechanism stops when its power source is cut, and he is on the floor before he has consciously registered the descent. One knee, then both. The marble is cold through his robes. He puts one hand flat against it to steady himself and stays there. 23 years of loss. Not experienced sequentially, not retrieved in order. All of it at once. The suit's weight, the sound of his own mechanical breathing in the silence of a Star Destroyer bridge, the only sound in the room, because everyone else was too afraid to breathe. Adam's face. The children he never held. The face of a boy who called him father, and meant it across 2 decades of darkness, who chose to reach down instead of letting him fall. What that choice cost the boy. What it cost everyone. All of it landing now. 5 minutes of action absorbing the full accounting of a lifetime. He does not try to stop it. He kneels on the floor and he lets it arrive. Mace Windu looks at Anakin Skywalker on the floor of Palpatine's office. He does not tell him to stand. He does not reference the code. He does not produce any of the responses Jedi training provides for displays of visible emotion in the field, the gentle redirect, the reminder of duty, the composed acknowledgement that suffering exists before the conversation moves on. None of those responses belong in this room. Mace Windu knows this the way he knows very few things, completely, without reservation, because Vapad told him so. He steps forward. He stands over Anakin, not looking down in judgment, simply occupying the space beside him, taking it as his own. And he places one hand on Anakin's shoulder. One hand. Firm, without words. Mace Windu, who almost never offers physical comfort, who treats the human body as a precision instrument, an emotional expression, as a variable to be managed, puts his hand on the shoulder of a man who just prevented the worst future the galaxy nearly lived through. He holds it there. He looks at the body of the man who almost ended everything. The afternoon light through the cracked windows goes amber as the sun descends. The city goes on beneath them. A trillion lives in motion. Not one of them aware that two men are standing in a room 40 stories up where the course of the next 20 years was just quietly, completely, and permanently changed. Neither man speaks. They don't need to. The silence between them is not empty. It holds everything. The adrenaline metabolizes slowly. It doesn't crash. It drains. The way water drains from a vessel with a small hole. And what replaces it is not relief. Because relief is too small and too clean a word for what fills the space. What replaces it is something larger and quieter and harder to name. The specific exhaustion of a man who has been holding his breath for 23 years and has at last exhaled. His lungs know what to do with real air. The rest of him is still learning. Anakin sits on the floor with his back against the Chancellor's ruined desk. His hands rest open on his knees, his real hands, his flesh hands, the ones that haven't burned. He is aware of them with an attention that borders on obsessive. The left, intact, warm, the familiar calluses of lightsaber practice exactly where they should be. The right, also intact, also warm. He keeps looking at the right hand. In another version of this day it is already gone, already replaced with a prosthetic that will eventually be encased in black armor, that will eventually stop feeling like armor and start feeling like skin. He looks at his right hand and flexes the fingers, slowly, and puts the hand back on his knee. He is 22 years old in body, something between 22 and 45 in everything else. The arithmetic between those two numbers is what he currently is, and he doesn't have language for it yet. Padmé is alive. The children, not yet born, present in his future memory as a weight and a warmth, are not yet born. There is still time. That simple equation holds more than any philosophy the temple ever gave him. Mace crouches beside him, not the posture of a superior addressing a subordinate, the posture of one man at eye level with another, which from Mace Windu costs something visible and given anyway. Tell me what happened to you. Not a command, not a debrief request. The question a man asks when he has already felt the answer through the most intimate empathic connection his discipline allows, and is offering the other man the chance to put it into words at his own pace. Anakin doesn't begin with the marriage. He begins with something harder. Order 66. The words are flat, delivered the way he delivered the lightning catch, without ceremony, because ceremony implies distance from the thing being said, and he has no distance from this. It was going to happen tonight. The inhibitor chips in every clone trooper in the Grand Army respond to an encrypted HoloNet signal. Palpatine designed it. 20 years ago, before the war, before the clone army existed, he designed it. Every Jedi general, on every front across the galaxy, dead before morning. I helped him build the empire that came after. Mace's face does not change. This is not because the information fails to land. It is because Mace Windu processes catastrophic information the way he does everything else, internally, completely, without giving the information the satisfaction of visible reaction. How certain are you that this was real, and not a Sith fabrication designed to break your connection to the Council? Anakin looks at him. The answer is immediate, and he doesn't soften it. because the man who came back is standing in front of you, telling you that Palpatine was a Sith Lord he served for 23 years. If it were a fabrication, Sidious would still be alive. The silence that follows is Mace Windu accepting this logic. He accepts it the way he accepts everything, completely, without announced decision, simply incorporating it into the picture of what is true. He stands. He moves to the window and looks at the city below and says nothing for almost a full minute. Then, the relay towers. Grid 7 is the primary broadcast hub. There are 2 backup channels. I know the authentication sequences and the exact relay architecture. A pause. I helped build the Imperial version. The Republic precursor is the same infrastructure. Mace turns from the window. His expression is the closest it comes to something Anakin might call unsettled. Not fear, not confusion, but the particular look of a man whose model of the world has just been replaced with a larger and more dangerous one. He absorbs it. He files it. He moves on. What else? The softer devastation arrives second. This is the one Anakin has been carrying longer. Not the future, not the Sith, not the strategic catastrophe that almost swallowed the galaxy. The quiet, private, ordinary fact of a secret that should never have been. 1. He tells Mace the way he told him about Order 66. Without apology, without preamble, without the management of tone that might make it easier to hear. Her name is Padmé. We were married on Naboo 2 years ago. She is carrying our children. He holds Mace's gaze. I will not hide this. I am done hiding things. I have spent more than half my life hiding things, and every secret I kept made me weaker. The silence this time is different in texture. The Order 66 silence was tactical processing. This one is personal, and it is longer, and somewhere inside it Mace Windu is doing something he is not equipped to make visible, reconsidering. Not Anakin's guilt. There is no performance here to evaluate for sincerity. Reconsidering the decade of suspicion, the cold distance, the institutional assessment of a boy who arrived with too much power and too much history and too much heart, and what the Council did with that boy, and what doing that produced, and how close the margin was between what almost happened and what actually did. He doesn't say any of this. Mace Windu says almost none of the things he is actually thinking. But he nods. Once, and the nod carries weight. The Council needs to hear all of it. He picks up his comlink. From you, directly, they arrive within the hour. The Chancellor's office becomes a staging ground, medics moving through the background, Senate security establishing a perimeter, the holonet feeds outside already beginning to flicker with fragmented reports. The surviving masters come in ones and twos, Ki-Adi Mundi, jaw set, eyes sweeping the room and landing on Palpatine's body with the controlled expression of a man confirming a calculation. Plo Koon, who takes the room in quietly and moves to stand near the window in silence. Others, recalled from nearby stations, some still in transit armor. Then, Obi-Wan. He comes through the door and stops. His eyes find Anakin first, alive, uninjured, seated now on what remains of a ceremonial bench along the office wall, and the breath he releases is not visible, but its relief is, briefly, in the set of his shoulders. Then his eyes move across the room. The body, Mace, the dead masters. Back to Anakin. He crosses the room and sits beside him without being asked. He doesn't speak immediately. He looks at the floor between his feet. Anakin tells it again. All of it. The future, Order 66, the relay tower, the suit. What he was going to become. He tells it the same way both times. Flat, precise, the tone of a man delivering a debrief, because that is the only way he knows how to say things this large without losing the ability to say them at all. Ki-Adi Mundi asks 3 questions, all tactical. Mace answers 2 of them. Plo Koon asks nothing and stands very still. Then Anakin tells them about Padmé. The room changes. Not dramatically, not in the way rooms change in stories, with a collective intake of breath or visible disruption. The change is smaller and more significant. A particular quality of attention arrives. The kind that precedes institutional consequence, the kind Anakin has been dreading, and is done dreading in the same breath. Ki-Adi-Mundi's expression closes. He knows the code. He will enforce the code. There is no cruelty in this. The position is doctrinally coherent and humanly insufficient, and Ki-Adi-Mundi has lived inside doctrine long enough that the distinction is no longer visible to him. Plo Koon says, very quietly, "How long?" 2 years. Plo Koon nods once. Something moves behind his eyes that the breath mask makes illegible. Obi-Wan doesn't say anything. This is the weight that lands last and lands hardest. Not the Council's reaction. Anakin can survive institutional consequence, has already survived worse in memory. Obi-Wan's silence is different. He is not betrayed. He is not assembling an argument. He is sitting beside Anakin and looking at the floor and doing what intelligent, emotionally careful men do when they realize something about their own failures that they cannot immediately fix. He is holding it, quietly, and letting it be what it is. He trained Anakin to suppress what he could not contain. Every time the emotion ran too large, too visible, the gentle redirect. The composed counsel. The demonstration, by example, of a man who managed everything inward and called it discipline. He gave Anakin a perfect model of how to function. He never gave him a model of how to live. And Anakin, who needed both, built the secret marriage and the hidden terror and the decade of quiet desperation in the space between those two things. Obi-Wan does not say any of this, but the understanding of it sits on him like weather. Eventually, Anakin stands. The council members are already moving into the outer office, the strategic conversation beginning, relay towers, Mas Amedda, what the next 6 hours require. The room is filling with the organized urgency of people who have narrowly survived a catastrophe and are already working on the next one. Anakin goes to the window. Coruscant at evening. The city lights beginning to replace the dying gold of late afternoon, layer by layer. The trillion-light skyline assembling itself the way it does every night. Indifferent, enormous, going on. Somewhere in this city, Padmé Amidala is in her apartment, alive, and does not yet know what happened in this room. Does not know how close the margin was. Does not know that the version of events where she died in a medical bay on an asteroid while he stood in armor and wept without knowing why, that version has been foreclosed. She is alive, and she doesn't know yet. That single fact closes around him like a hand around something fragile and precious. His chest tightens with it. Not grief, not fear. Something he is still learning to recognize because he spent 23 years without access to it. He needs to go to her. He walks alone. 1 hour. He asked Mace for 1 hour with no escort, no political management, no debrief continuation. And Mace looked at him for a long moment and said nothing, and that silence was permission. The corridors of the Senate building release him into the city's open air, and Anakin Skywalker walks through Coruscant at the edge of evening, with his hands in his robe pockets, and no destination anyone official knows about. The city goes on. This is the thing that strikes him, repeatedly with the insistence of something his mind cannot process, and keeps attempting anyway. The city simply goes on. Traffic moves in its layered columns above the pedestrian levels. A vendor 2 blocks from the Senate's outer plaza is arguing with a droid about a delivery manifest. Voice raised. Genuinely aggrieved about something that has nothing to do with Sith Lords or inhibitor chips, or the 43 minutes that just quietly determined the shape of the next century. A group of children crosses an elevated walkway ahead of him, uniformed, school-age, talking over each other with the complete self-absorption of people who have not yet learned that catastrophe is possible. He is the only person on this planet who has lived through its destruction and is walking through its intact streets. The knowledge sits in his chest like ballast. Not heavy in the way grief is heavy, heavier, more permanent, the specific weight of perspective that cannot be unlearned. He will carry this for the rest of his life. The knowledge of what these streets almost became, the knowledge of what the children on that walkway almost never grew up to be. He will carry it, and it will make him, forever, a man slightly out of phase with the world around him, seeing the version that almost was, overlaid on the version that is. He decides, somewhere between the Senate Plaza and Padmé's building, that this is not a burden. It is a responsibility. And he has been given responsibilities before. Padmé opens the door. She reads his face in the first second. She has always been able to read his face, better than anyone, better than Obi-Wan, better than any Jedi Master with their empathic training, because she learned the language of his expressions during years of careful attention, paid for love's sake, which is the most thorough kind of scholarship. She reads the face and takes one step back, preparing herself for the category of news his expression belongs to. She sees that he is uninjured. She sees that he has been crying, recently, and has not fully recovered. She sees something else, something she has no prior data point for, no established category in the language of his expressions she has built over years. The fear that lived permanently behind his eyes, the one so constant she had long since stopped noticing it the way you stop noticing the sound of a building's ventilation. It is gone. Not suppressed. Not managed. Gone, the way a structural feature is gone when the building it belonged to no longer exists. Anakin crosses the threshold. He holds her. Not the way he held her before. Not with the desperate, slightly too tight grip of a man terrified of losing something. The grip that communicated love and terror in equal measure, because he could never fully separate them. He holds her the way someone holds something they have already lost and been given back, which is with the particular carefulness of a person who knows the exact weight of absence and is not taking presence for granted again. His arms settle around her and stay there. He puts his face against her hair. She doesn't ask immediately. She knows him well enough to know that some things need the silence first. When he speaks, he tells her everything. Not managed. Not sequenced for emotional palatability. He tells her the way he told the council, the way he has decided he is telling everything from now on, because the architecture of his life before was built on what he kept private, and it nearly killed everyone he loved. He tells her about Palpatine, what the Chancellor was, what he had been for 30 years. The Sith Master running both sides of a manufactured war from behind a grandfatherly face. He tells her about the office, Mace with the blade, his own arm raising, the collision of souls mid-swing. Her face, as he talks, moves through a landscape of expressions he watches with attention. The Padmé he has known for years processes information with the particular quality of a trained political mind, categorizing, connecting, drawing structural implications from individual facts. He watches her doing this in real time, watches the senator and the wife operating simultaneously, and loves both of them with a completeness that makes his sternum ache. He tells her about the future. Not everything, not the darkness, not the specifics of what Darth Vader did across 23 years, because she does not need those details, and they will not help her, and he will spend the rest of his life making them irrelevant anyway. He tells her the true things, the ones that matter, that the children are extraordinary, that they become extraordinary. He tells her what Luke becomes, a Jedi, the best of them, the one who refused to stop believing in the possibility of redemption. He tells her about Leia, who inherits her mother's political courage and her father's will, and becomes, in a future that no longer exists, the heart of a rebellion that kept hope alive for decades. She weeps. Not from fear, not from the accumulated shock of the information. She is, at her core, not easily overwhelmed by information, even information of this magnitude. She weeps from the specific relief of hearing her children described as alive and remarkable, as people who become themselves, who get to grow into what they are. She has spent months carrying the secret terror of what kind of world brings children into, what survival looks like for people born to parents with targets on them. And Anakin is sitting across from her telling her that Luke and Leia get to live, that they get to be extraordinary. Her hand comes up to cover her mouth, and the tears come through it anyway. He watches her, and the warmth in his chest is so large it makes thought difficult. He takes her hands, both of them, in both of his. I know what I was going to do to you. The words cost something. He pays it. In the future I lived, I was the one who. He stops. One breath. Then again. I need you to know that. And I need you to know that the man who did it is gone. He burned. What's left is only this. She looks at him for a long time. Her hands are steady in his. She made them steady. The way she makes herself steady when something requires it of her. I know, she says. Simple, not absolution. He didn't ask for it, wouldn't accept it if offered. Because absolution implies the act occurred, and he has foreclosed the act. She says it as a statement of her own recognition. She knows the man in front of her. She has always known him. She is looking at him right now, not at the ghost of a future that no longer has a path to walk. Her other hand comes up and touches his face, finds it unburned, finds it real. Her fingers rest against his jaw, and she looks at him with the expression of a woman who has just recalculated everything she was afraid of and found the answer changed. You came back, she says. I came back, he says. The moment is interrupted by Dorm moving quietly through the corridor doorway. She stops when she sees them. Her expression cycles through an apology she doesn't voice, but she holds a data tablet with the orange border of a priority Senate communication, and her posture communicates that it will not wait. Padmé reads his face, the small permission in it, and takes the tablet. Her expression changes. The grief and reunion don't disappear. They fold inward with the practiced efficiency of a woman who has spent a decade learning how to contain her interior life when the situation requires her exterior one. It is not suppression. It is not what Anakin was taught to do, the burying of feeling underperformance. It is something more sophisticated, the ability to hold both things simultaneously, the personal and the political, without letting either erase the other. Senator Amidala assembles herself over the wife who was weeping 30 seconds ago, and what Padmé Amidala looks like in full political crisis mode is formidable in the specific way that very intelligent people are formidable, without announcement, without performance, just the sudden absolute quality of focused attention. Mace Windu has called an emergency Senate session. Her eyes move across the feed rapidly. His preliminary framing to the press used the word assassination. Republic military forces elevated to alert status. She sets the tablet down. Stands, he'll move in the next 12 hours. He'll frame this as a coup before anyone can frame it as a liberation. We need bail. Anakin watches her. Something moves through him that is not pride. Exactly. Pride implies distance. Implies standing apart from the thing you're observing, and he has no distance from her. It is closer to recognition. The kind of recognition that arrives when you see someone operating at exactly what they were made for. He spent 23 years fighting for an empire while this woman was the one who could have saved the Republic. He knows this with the specific terrible clarity of lived consequence. He does not say it aloud. He files it in the place where he keeps the things he will spend the rest of his life making right. They sit at her kitchen table with a HoloNet terminal between them. Two people who know different things, both of which are necessary. Anakin lays out the Imperial succession architecture, how Palpatine designed the transition, what pressure points existed, where the vulnerabilities were built into a system designed to become autocracy and can therefore be used to prevent it. Padmé maps the Senate floor in real time, who the genuine democratic loyalists are, where the leverage points live in the procedural structure, which votes can be moved and by whom. They work with the particular efficiency of two people whose thinking is complementary in the specific way that comes from years of knowing each other, finishing implications rather than sentences, building on each other's points without competition. This is what they always were, underneath everything. Underneath the secrecy and the terror and the desperate love that curdled because it had nowhere legitimate to go. Two minds that work better together than separately. Outside the apartment windows, Coruscant's night skyline assembles itself, layer by layer, indifferent and enormous. Padmé opens a channel. Bail Organa's face appears in the blue hollow light above the table. He is already grim, already aware of something. His political instincts are as good as hers, and the feeds have been fragmenting for an hour. Bail, Padmé's voice is calm and precise and completely in command. The Chancellor is dead. The Jedi did not start this. But if we don't move in the next 6 hours, Mace Windu will make sure everyone believes they did. The HoloNet is lying. Not uniformly. The individual feeds contradict each other, some by accident, some by design, and the contradiction is itself a weapon. One channel runs Mace Windu's preliminary statement on a loop. measured, grave. The careful syntax of a man who has been preparing this version of events longer than anyone knows. A second feed has raw Senate floor footage, unedited. Senators from 6 different systems shouting over each other in the emergency session's opening chaos. A third is running a map of Republic military deployments with the kind of detail that requires an official source, which means someone in the military has already chosen a side. The word assassination is on all 3. Coruscant at night registers the contradiction the way large cities register information, not in panic, not yet, but in that particular suspended state that precedes it, the held breath before the scream. Traffic patterns are slightly wrong. Pedestrian density in the Senate district is higher than night cycle norms, people moving toward screens and terminals and each other without fully knowing why. 3 blocks from the communications hub, a cantina has turned its interior screens to the news feed, and the crowd inside has gone quiet in the particular way crowds go quiet when they sense that something large is happening but cannot yet determine its shape. In the Senate chambers, Mace Windu stands behind the vice chair's podium with the composure of a man who has been rehearsing this moment for decades. He is alone with 3 loyalist aides and a communications officer who has been with the Chancellor's office for 11 years and is therefore, by institutional gravity. Here, the chamber itself is empty. The emergency session is in recess. Senators disperse to their pods and offices and secure channels. The kind of recess that has actually barely contained chaos with a procedural name. Mace Windu does not look at the empty chamber. He looks at the communications officer. The Chancellor's authority is technically required for Order 66 authentication, the aide to his left says. Not an objection. An observation. A man covering himself for the record. I am now the Chancellor. The flat tone of it is worse than anger would have been. The constitutional transfer is automatic. There is no ambiguity. He turns to the communications officer. Prepare the Order 66 contingency signal. Do not broadcast. Have it ready. The communications officer hesitates for exactly 1 beat. The beat of a person whose body understands the magnitude of what they are being asked before their conscious mind has fully caught up. Then their hands move to the console. The Jedi murdered the Supreme Chancellor in his office. Mace Windu's voice has not changed register. It will not change register. He has the particular vocal quality of men who learned long ago that authority sounds like boredom. Every clone trooper in this galaxy has a mechanism in his skull designed for exactly this contingency. Have it ready. The authentication sequence begins. The 501st barracks adjacent to the Senate district are not quiet. They are never quiet. Clone troopers don't do quiet the way civilian buildings do quiet. There is always the undertone of equipment checks and boots on Durasteel, and the shorthand conversation of men who have spent years in proximity. But tonight the undertone is different. Higher frequency. Word moves through the barracks the way word always moves through military units, faster than official channels, less accurate, more believed. The Chancellor is dead. Jedi involvement. Command authority unclear. Anakin walks through the center of the barracks floor, and the conversation stops. Not from fear. From the particular attention soldiers give the commander who has brought them home before. He stands in the middle of the floor and looks at them. His men. The ones who in another version of this night were going to receive a signal in their skulls and become something none of them chose to be, and he speaks to them the way he always has. Directly, without management. Without the careful calibration of information that military command structures typically require between truth and troop. I'm going to tell you something that sounds wrong, and I need you to trust me the way you've trusted me on every battlefield you've followed me across. He doesn't raise his voice. He never raises his voice with them. Palpatine was not what he seemed. He was never what he seemed. And what Mace Windu is about to do will end the Republic as completely as any separatist victory. We have one target tonight, the HoloNet relay tower in Grid 7. We need it cold before the signal goes out. A pause. Not for effect, to let the weight of the next words land without cushioning. No one dies if I can help it. But that signal cannot transmit. Rex is at his left shoulder. He has been at Anakin's left shoulder for 3 years across 100 engagements on 30 worlds. And he stands there now with the expression he always wears when a mission briefing contains significantly more complexity than a mission briefing should. Steady, processing, already sorting the tactical variables. The room is very still. Then, from somewhere in the back, a trooper whose designation Anakin knows as Kix, orders, General. The tension in the room doesn't break. It resolves. Those are different things. The relay tower in Grid 7 is a functional structure, not a military installation, not designed for defense. Its security exists because communications infrastructure requires physical protection from accident and casual interference, not because anyone designed it to withstand a special forces insertion. Which means Anakin knows exactly where the soft points are. Vader built the Imperial relay infrastructure. The Republic precursor is the same bones. The 501st moves through Coruscant's infrastructure levels in two elements. The main body takes the approach route toward the primary entrance, not to breach, to occupy attention. The sound of clone armor on metal walkways carries. The Coruscant Guard units already stationed at the tower's exterior hear them coming, which is the point. Let them hear. Let them position for the approach they can see. Anakin takes Rex and two line officers through a maintenance access corridor that runs along the tower's eastern face. The smell down here is specific, the mineral cold of recycled air and the sharp ozone of active relay equipment, the particular combination that means high-voltage infrastructure in an enclosed space. Blue indicator lights along the corridor walls. The hum of the boosters at full active status, a sound felt more in the chest than heard through the ears. The authentication terminals are through the interior maintenance hatch, 40 meters from the primary relay controls. Anakin counts the steps from the access point without looking at his feet. He knows this layout the way he knows the back of his hands, from memory, from a future memory of building something slightly larger on the same foundation. The hatch opens into the primary relay room. A Coruscant Guard unit is stationed at the controls. 7 troopers, armor distinct from clone whites, Coruscant Guard Red, the personal household troops of the Chancellor's office. Their sergeant is a career man, the kind of face that has spent 20 years in institutional loyalty, who follows authority, because authority is the structure that makes everything else make sense. He recognizes Anakin immediately. His hand doesn't go to his weapon. He goes very still instead, which is a different kind of readiness. The standoff occupies approximately 12 seconds of real time that feel considerably longer. Anakin doesn't raise a lightsaber. He doesn't reach for the one on his belt. He looks at the sergeant the way he looked at Palpatine in the last moments. Without performance, without management, just the direct weight of a man who has already been through the worst version of this moment and is offering a different one. Your commander is about to use those consoles to execute 30,000 Jedi Knights across the galaxy. No accusation in it. Facts, delivered at eye level. Not because they committed treason. Because one old man who was running a Sith cult for 30 years is dead, and the man who replaced him wants to cover his own tracks before anyone starts asking what he knew. He holds the sergeant's gaze. I am asking you to step aside. Not for me. For the Jedi who trained next to you in this building. For the ones who've been fighting this war alongside your brothers for 3 years. The sergeant's face is unreadable in the way trained soldiers make their faces unreadable. But his eyes move, briefly, involuntarily, to the authentication console behind him, to the sequence that is actively running, to the number in the corner of the screen that is counting down toward broadcast authorization. He looks back at Anakin. One small step to the left. Anakin is at the console before the step is complete. He knows exactly which relays to sever and in what sequence. Not guessing, not working from general principle, exact knowledge, specific and surgical. The primary broadcast channel, a 4-input authentication override that requires simultaneous entry across 2 terminals. He pulls Rex to the second terminal, talks him through it in 10 words, and they execute simultaneously. The primary channel flatlines. 40 seconds. The backup channel is a single-point cutover, easier to sever and easier to restore, which means it has a hardware lockout that requires a physical component removal. Anakin reaches into the console housing with a bare hand, feels along the board until he finds the relay card, and pulls. The backup indicator drops. 15 seconds. The tertiary emergency frequency is the one that almost kills the window. It has a redundant authentication that requires the original signal's encryption key to disable, a security feature built in specifically for scenarios in which the primary channels have been compromised. Anakin stands at the tertiary console and works through the override sequence from memory, Vader's memory, the Empire's encryption architecture still perfectly legible in his mind, used one last time in service of exactly the opposite purpose it was built for. 30 seconds. The tertiary frequency dies. The room goes quiet in the specific way that relay equipment goes quiet when it is no longer relaying anything. Not silent. The hardware still runs, but the quality of the hum changes, drops a register, loses the particular urgency of active transmission. The HoloNet signal indicator flatlines. Anakin stands in the hum of dead equipment and exhales. Across the galaxy, on Felucia, on Kashyyyk, on Megiddo, on 30 other fronts where Jedi generals are sleeping or planning or standing in the middle of firefights, 30,000 people are still breathing. None of them know how close the margin was. None of them know that 43 seconds ago there was a countdown running in a relay room on Coruscant, that the distance between their lives and Order 66 came down to one sergeant's one small step to the left. Rex puts a hand on Anakin's arm. The grip is brief and firm, and says what neither of them has words for. The guard sergeant has not moved from his position against the wall. He is looking at the flatlined indicator with the expression of a man who has made a decision he will spend a long time thinking about, and knows it, and made it anyway. Anakin looks at him. He nods. Once. The sergeant nods back. No one says anything. They don't have to. The sound of the city filters down through the infrastructure levels, distant, enormous. Going on. The morning after arrives without ceremony. Coruscant's upper levels catch the dawn in stages, the tallest spires first, then the Senate District towers, then the layered mid-levels where the night shift is still running and doesn't particularly care about sunrise. The temple catches it well. The 5 spires pull the early light out of the sky and hold it. The ancient stone, warm and amber before the rest of the city, has fully committed to day. The council chamber is operational before the light reaches the lower windows. Someone has been in already. There is fresh water on the side table, and the room smells of the specific cleaning solution the temple uses on formal floors, the one that has a faint mineral quality Anakin associates with every difficult conversation he has had in this building since age 9. There are many to choose from. The situation map on the central holo table is active, the Separatist Council's last known position pulsing red on Mustafar. They have been there for approximately 46 hours. Their communications traffic, being monitored by Temple intelligence since Palpatine's death, has spiked and collapsed in cycles. Frantic coordination, then silence. Then frantic coordination again. No orders from Sidious. No confirmation of the signal they were promised. Their droids are still deployed, still technically at war, because no one with authority to stand them down has issued the order and no one in the Separatist command structure knows why. The war is still running. Technically, like a machine whose operator has left the room, someone has to go to Mustafar. Anakin volunteers before the sentence asking for volunteers is complete. He knows exactly what was supposed to happen there. He knows what the original mission looked like, what Darth Vader carried to that volcanic moon in another life, the specific cold efficiency of an executioner arriving at a room full of people who trusted a man who had already decided to discard them. He is not going there for that. He is going there to end the war, and the distinction matters to him in a way that goes beyond mission objectives. He is going because he owes the galaxy a debt that cannot be repaid by addition alone. Some of it has to be paid by going to the exact places the debt originated. He asks for Obi-Wan. Not as a tactical calculation. Not because the mission requires a second Jedi, though it doesn't hurt. He asks for Obi-Wan because Obi-Wan is the person he wants beside him on the approach to Mustafar, and he has spent 23 years in a future memory being a man who never said what he wanted, and is actively practicing the alternative. Obi-Wan has been in a state of controlled, careful quiet since Anakin's confessions in the Chancellor's office. Not withdrawn, present, functioning, doing what he does in every difficult situation. which is processed internally at high speed while maintaining an exterior composure that could be mistaken for serenity by someone who didn't know him. Anakin knows him. The composure is real, and the processing is also real, and somewhere underneath both of them is a man who is reckoning with a version of his own history that he didn't have before yesterday. He accepts without hesitation. The transport breaks atmosphere and enters hyperspace 40 minutes after departure. The blue tunnel fills the viewport, that specific, absolute blue that exists nowhere else in the observable universe, the color of space folding around itself. It is a quiet kind of beautiful, and Anakin has logged more hours staring at it than he can count, across a lifetime of campaigns and transit. And the long, hollow stretches between engagements when there was nothing to do but sit with his own thoughts, which, in that other life, was its own kind of suffering. Now he sits with them differently. Obi-Wan is in the co-pilot seat, turned slightly toward the viewport. He has a cup of something warm that he has been holding long enough that it is probably no longer warm, and he is not drinking it. He is looking at the hyperspace stream with the specific quality of attention that means he is not seeing it. He speaks first. "When did I fail you?" A pause that has weight in it. Not hesitation, but the deliberate placement of space around a question that deserves it. Because I know that I did. I need to understand where. The hyperspace stream moves, blue light across both their faces. Anakin is quiet for a long time before answering. Not because he doesn't know the answer. He has had 23 years of memory in which to work it out, followed by 2 days of living in the original timeline with the answer visible in real time. He is quiet, because the answer deserves the same care Obi-Wan gave the question. "You never failed me, Obi-Wan. The certainty in it is complete and unperformed. You taught me everything. But there were things I needed that you didn't know how to give, and I never knew how to ask. That's not your failure. That's two people who cared about each other and couldn't speak the language." Obi-Wan turns from the viewport. He looks at Anakin with the expression of a man who wants to accept this and is too honest to accept it entirely. That's more generous than it needs to be. "It's accurate," Anakin says. "There's a difference. What follows is not a conversation that has a shape in advance. It finds its shape as it goes, the way the best conversations do. One thing leading to the next, because the previous thing made the next one possible." Anakin tells him what it was like to be in the suit. Not the events. Obi-Wan knows the events, or will know them, and the events are not the point. The experience. The interior landscape of it. The way the Force felt through the respirator filter, muted, mechanical, like hearing music through several walls, present but with all the texture removed, all the living quality flattened into signal. The isolation of the helmet, not just physically, the sensory isolation, but the way it created a permanent distance between himself and every room he entered, every person he faced, because no one could see his face, and he could not show it, and after enough years the face became something he forgot he had. The silence, at the center of all of it. 2 decades of silence that he filled with power and cruelty because he had nothing else to fill it with, and no one to tell him there was something else. He describes Endor, the second Death Star. A boy who refused, at every possible turn, to accept that his father was gone, who built his entire strategy around the premise that something redeemable still existed inside the armor, and was right, and the rightness of it cost him enormously, and he paid the cost without complaint. "He looked at me," Anakin says. Not loudly. Luke looked at me, not at Vader, not at the armor, at me. And I felt it. 23 years of not being seen. And this boy who had every reason in the galaxy to hate what I was looked straight through all of it. He looks at the hyperspace stream. "I didn't know you could survive being seen like that. I thought it would kill me." He pauses. It was the opposite. Obi-Wan has set down the cup. He is very still in the way that people go still when they are receiving something that requires their entire attention. "I should have told you." His voice is careful and direct, and it costs him something, the way honesty costs people who have spent their lives managing information. "Years ago. I should have told you that I was proud of you. Not of your technique or your victories or your service record. A beat that has the particular weight of a man deciding to say the thing he has spent years not saying. Of you. I should have said it plainly. Anakin looks at him. Something releases in his chest. Not dramatically, not with the physical intensity of the moments in the Chancellor's office. Quietly, the way a held breath releases when you finally remember to exhale. I know you were, he says. I always knew. I just needed to hear it from my son before I believed it. Obi-Wan looks at him for a long moment. Then he nods, once, and turns back to the viewport, and the hyperspace stream moves across both their faces, and neither of them speaks again for a while. The silence between them is a different quality than the silence has ever been. Not empty. Not managed. Not the silence of two people maintaining composure and proximity, just two people, in a cockpit, who have finally said the things. The brotherhood that has always been present, but perpetually indirect, is here. Finally direct. Not repaired, it never needed repair. The thing itself was always intact. What was broken was the path to it, the language for it, the permission structure that should have existed and didn't. What happens in this cockpit, in the blue light of hyperspace, transit to a volcanic moon, is not the remaking of something damaged. It is the first time they have spoken as themselves. Mustafar announces itself before the viewport confirms it. The light changes first, the blue of hyperspace giving way to the amber orange of a system whose star is old and dim, whose only inhabited body glows from the inside with geological violence. Then the planet itself resolves. No soft edges, no gradual reveal. Mustafar arrives the way it always arrives, with the visual vocabulary of a place that has no interest in being anything other than what it is. Lava, fire, the patient, ancient indifference of a moon that has been destroying itself for longer than any civilization in this star system has existed. The cockpit windows go orange. Obi-Wan looks at it with the expression of a man encountering something for the first time that he has heard about enough to have formed a picture, and finding the picture was insufficient. You were going to, yes, a silence. The people in that complex. In the original mission. Vader was sent to, yes, Obi-Wan looks at the planet. Then at Anakin. The thing that moves through his expression is not horror. He has known horror, has been adjacent to it for most of his career. It is something more precise. The specific grief of a man looking at what someone he loves almost became, in a place where they almost became it, on approach to the exact location. Anakin's hands are steady on the controls. The phantom sensation is there, the future memory of this planet on skin that no longer exists. The suit's heat management system running at capacity. The respirator pulling volcanic air through its filters. He feels it the way he feels old injuries in cold weather. Real, localized, and not in command of what happens next. He sets the approach vector. The complex is visible now against the lava fields, industrial and brutalist and lit from below in red. Obi-Wan beside him, steady, 2 Jedi. One war to end. Before they reach the complex, the comm in the shuttle chimes with a priority channel Anakin didn't request. Ahsoka Tano's face resolves in the blue light above the console. She has been running her own investigation since Palpatine's death hit the HoloNet, chasing the same separatist financial trail she chased in another life. Except in this life she got here 4 hours ahead of them, and she is standing in a supply corridor 2 levels below the boardroom, with a captured droid tech's access codes and absolutely no official authorization to be doing any of it. Sky Guy, her voice has the specific brightness she uses when she's furious, and hasn't decided yet whether to show it. You want to tell me why Rex sent me a message that started with "Don't panic"? He doesn't answer immediately. He hasn't seen her face. Not really seen it. Not since the vision. Since a hangar bay on a Star Destroyer in a future that no longer has a path to happen. In that future he hunted her. He knows exactly how that hunt ended, how close it came to ending permanently, and he has been carrying the knowledge of it the way he carries all the others. Filed, contained, not yet spoken aloud to the one person it belongs to. Ahsoka. His voice isn't steady the way it was in the council chamber. I need you to hear something before you see me. And I need you to hear it from me, not from a report. Something in his tone lands on her before the words do. Her brightness drops half a register. You're scaring me a little, Sky Guy, I fell. He says it the way he said everything else that mattered this week. Flat, unmanaged, no room built in for her to disagree with it. In a future that isn't going to happen now. I fell. And I hunted the Order. And I hunted you. I would have found you eventually. I would have tried to kill you. And some part of me would have wanted to. The silence on the channel is long enough that Obi-Wan, beside him, stops pretending not to listen. Would have, Ahsoka says finally, testing the tense. Would have. Not will. Not anymore. He holds the channel, not looking away from it, because looking away would be the old habit, the one that hid things because hiding was easier than being seen carrying them. I'm telling you because you left the Order over something the Council did wrong, and I let you go without fighting for you. And in the life I remember, that silence between us never healed. I don't want it unhealed in this one. Not for one more day. Ahsoka is quiet for a long moment. When she answers, her voice has lost the brightness entirely, replaced by something older than her years have any right to sound. I always wondered what happened to you. After I left. A beat. I used to imagine it was something like that. I hated that I could imagine it that clearly. I'm sorry. I know, not absolution, recognition, the same currency Padmé traded him back on Coruscant. You're doing something about it right now, aren't you? That's why you're headed to Mustafar with half the Council's diplomatic authority and none of its patience. Something like that. Then finish it. Her voice firms back up, snapping into the version of herself that led men into battle at 17. And Anakin, when this is done, you're going to sit down with me and Rex and actually talk. Not report. Talk. I will. She cuts the channel before he can hear whatever she does with her face after that. He sits with the silence for a moment. Obi-Wan doesn't say anything about it, which is its own kind of acknowledgement. The boardroom smells of recycled air and fear, not metaphorically. Fear has a specific chemistry, cortisol and adrenaline metabolizing in a closed environment over 46 hours with inadequate ventilation. And the Separatist Council's boardroom has been sealed since their arrival, the environmental controls set to Nemoidian comfortable temperatures that have done nothing to address what the room's occupants have been producing at a biological level for 2 days. Newt Gunray sits at the head of the table with the posture of a man who has been performing composure for so long that his body has forgotten what genuine composure feels like. Rune Hako is beside him, silent in the specific way that very frightened people are silent when they know that speaking might draw attention to themselves. Watt timbers environmental suit cycles with metronomic regularity. Sandhill has his hands flat on the table and has not moved them in 4 hours. Shu Mei watches the door. Poggle the Lesser watches nothing and says nothing, which is, in the arithmetic of this room's collective dread, the loudest thing happening. The communications console in the corner has been checked 46 times. No signal from Darth Sidious. No confirmation of the mission they were promised. No word from Lord Vader, who was supposed to arrive 46 hours ago to inform them that their side had won. The door opens. 2 Jedi walk in. Anakin enters first. His blue lightsaber is clipped to his belt, deactivated. He is not in armor. He wears Jedi field robes that have accumulated the specific dishevelment of a man who has been awake for 36 hours across several extremely consequential situations, and he moves through the boardroom door with no aggressive posture, no weapons drawn, no tactical assertion of space. He walks to the far end of the table from Newt Gunray and settles into a chair with the particular quality of stillness that very dangerous people have when they have decided not to be dangerous right now. Obi-Wan takes a position near the door, not blocking it. Standing, the room's occupants register the lightsabers, register that they are not drawn, register that 2 Jedi have walked into the room where Darth Vader was supposed to walk, and are sitting down, and this does not map onto any of the scenarios they have been running for 46 hours. Newt Gunray finds his voice first. It is not a steady voice. Where is Lord Vader? Anakin looks at him and settles back into the chair. Lord Vader is not coming. I am General Anakin Skywalker of the Grand Army of the Republic, and I am here to end this war. The room detonates the way rooms detonate, when the structure people have been using to organize their fear is abruptly removed. Anakin waits it out. When it drops to something speakable, he lays out what he knows. Palpatine, Sidious, the manufactured war, the amnesty offer. Sand Hill recovers fastest, because financial minds recover fastest when the asset turns liability. Convenient, he says, that the man making this accusation is the same man who, by his own admission, was groomed for 20 years to serve the person he's now accusing. Forgive us if we require something more than your word, General. It's a fair point, and Anakin knows it's a fair point. Which is worse than if it weren't. I don't have documentary proof sitting in this room, he says. What I have is this. Ask yourselves why Vader never came. Ask yourselves why the signal you were promised never transmitted. Ask yourselves why the war's architect is dead, and nobody on your side ordered it. He lets that sit. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to trust the silence. It's been screaming at you for 2 days. Poggle the Lesser, who has said nothing this entire time, finally speaks. His voice carries the particular quality of someone choosing words that will outlive the conversation. I watched Sidious use Dooku the way a man uses a tool he intends to discard. His compound eyes hold on Anakin. I kept my own counsel on 3 operational decisions because I did not trust where his information originated. I have wondered, for 2 years, if I was the only one who noticed. A pause. You knew that. About me. How? Because I know things about this war's architecture that only someone who served its designer would know, Anakin says. And I did, for 23 years, in a life you'll never have to live through. Poggle is silent for a long moment. Then he reaches for the treaty document and signs, not because he's been persuaded by the offer's generosity, but because he has just had his own 2 years of private suspicion confirmed by a stranger who had no way to know about it, and that costs more than any speech could. Gunray is not moved the same way. He stands, and his voice climbs. I built a movement out of real grievances. Trade regulation, Republic corruption, the exploitation of the Outer Rim. You don't erase that history by telling us we were being used. Some of what we fought for was true, regardless of who was pulling strings behind it. Anakin doesn't have a clean answer for this, and he doesn't reach for one. You're right, he says. Some of it was true. That's what made you useful to him. He didn't invent your anger. He aimed it. That doesn't make the anger fake. It makes the aiming a crime. And it means the grievances still need answering after this war ends. By people who aren't manipulating you for it. He holds Gunray's gaze. The amnesty isn't a reward for being right. It's a recognition that punishing you for his crime doesn't fix anything for the Outer Rim systems, who are still the ones bleeding. Ending this today is the only thing that helps them. It isn't a total victory. Gunray sits back down without conceding the argument. Only the position, his signature, when it comes, is the signature of a man who still believes part of his cause was clean, and Anakin doesn't take that from him, because it isn't his to take. The room signs, one by one, in the order their private calculations resolve, rather than in the order Anakin would have scripted. It takes longer than a single speech. It costs him the clean win version of the scene. It's truer for it. The Clone Wars end, not with explosions, not in a fleet engagement, or a final ground assault, or the dramatic last stand of a war's final battle. They end with the scratch of a stylus in a boardroom on a volcanic moon, the sound of it barely audible over the environmental systems. Obi-Wan transmits the signed documents to Coruscant immediately. Somewhere in the Republic war room, the active theater boards begin receiving stand-down confirmations. The map of the galaxy, which has been lit red for 3 years, begins going dark in small increments, one system, then another, the lights of an ending war going out like candles at the close of a long evening. They walk out into Mustafar's heat. It presses on both of them immediately, the specific, aggressive warmth of a world that operates at temperatures the human body does not find hospitable, a heat that carries its own weight and smell. Sulfur, burning rock. The ancient volcanic patience of geological process continuing with complete indifference to what just happened in the building behind them. Obi-Wan breaks the silence after approximately 30 seconds. The Republic will have a complicated time explaining that the Clone Wars ended in a negotiation instead of a battle, not a criticism. The observation of a man who has managed institutional communication for most of his career and is already running the variables. Anakin walks forward without breaking stride. Let them. The people who died in those 3 years deserve a complicated ending. Obi-Wan considers this. He nods, once, with the particular quality of a nod that means not just agreement, but recognition. The recognition that the person speaking has said the true thing. The thing that cuts through the framing to what is actually underneath. The lava fields stretch ahead of them, orange and slow and ancient. They walk. Anakin says he needs 5 minutes. Obi-Wan doesn't ask why. He reads the look, not the words, the look. And the look is sufficient. He simply follows, which is the most Obi-Wan thing he can do, because Obi-Wan Kenobi has been following Anakin Skywalker into situations that require explanation they don't have time for since the boy was 9 years old. And the habit of trust is deeper than the habit of asking. They walk away from the landing pad, away from the complex, with its recycled air and its signed documents, and the ghost of a war ending in paperwork. The path Anakin takes is deliberate and specific, not toward the most accessible overlook, not toward the most impressive view of the lava fields, but toward a precise location, a particular ridge above a particular flow, chosen with the navigational certainty of someone who has been here before in a version of events that no longer exists. The terrain is not hospitable. Mustafar doesn't do hospitable. The ground between the complex and the lava banks is industrial waste rock, broken and irregular, and the heat rises in visible waves off every dark surface. Anakin moves through it without hesitation. His feet know the route the way feet know routes they have walked in memory. They stop at a high ridge. Below them, one of Mustafar's major lava flows moves in the patient, ancient way that lava moves. Not quickly, not dramatically by the standards of things with shorter timelines, but with absolute certainty. It has been moving here for longer than the Republic has existed. It will be moving here when the next Republic has also ended. The orange light it throws upward is diffuse and enormous, painting the underside of the smoke above in burnt amber, and the heat it radiates at this distance is immense, not the heat of a fire, but the heat of something geological. The accumulated warmth of a planet's interior expressing itself at the surface with no particular concern for what stands above it. Anakin looks at it. He doesn't speak immediately. Obi-Wan doesn't prompt him. They stand on the ridge in the volcanic heat, and Obi-Wan does the thing he has been learning, with considerable effort. Across the past 2 days, he waits without filling the silence with management. The lava moves. The smoke above it moves. The heat presses against exposed skin like a held palm that has no intention of lifting. Anakin reaches up and touches his own face. The gesture is not dramatic. It is the gesture of a man confirming something he already knows with sensory evidence. The way you check a wound's location with your fingers even though you know exactly where it is. His real features under his real hand. Unburned. The jaw, the cheekbone, the forehead. The specific geography of a face that exists in the world without a mask over it. He stands with his fingers against his own face and looks at the lava below, and says nothing for a long moment. The phantom pain is real. This is what he did not tell Obi-Wan in the cockpit, because it was not the right thing to tell him there, and this place is the right place for it. The future memory is not just visual, not just narrative. It carries proprioception, the body's own accounting of itself across the years he spent in the suit. The weight distribution of the armor, calibrated to the exact specifications of a body that no longer has legs below the knee, and no longer has a right arm, and no longer has skin on most of its surface area. The respirator's rhythm, which became his breathing because it was his breathing. The mechanical inhalation and exhalation that replaced the biological ones on this ridge, in this heat. After. He reaches his right arm out, palm up, over the edge of the ridge. The heat from the flow below presses upward against it. He can feel it. He can feel the heat on real flesh, on a real hand, on an arm that ends in real fingers that flex at his instruction. He stands there with his arm extended over the lava flow and breathes the volcanic air into real lungs and lets the phantom pain sit alongside the real sensation, and does not try to resolve the two into one thing, because they are two things, and they are both true. I burned here. His voice is quiet, not confessional, not performing grief, not managing toward a particular response. Simply true. My legs, my arm, my face, everything. I was so angry. Angry at you, angry at the council, angry at myself, and there was no one left to be angry at because everyone was already gone. So I just... He stops, pulls the arm back. Burned. The lava moves below them. I remember what the air smelled like. He takes a breath of it now. Sulfur, burning rock, the mineral sharpness of superheated atmosphere. Sulfur and my own. He stops again. The sentence doesn't need finishing. I remember. Obi-Wan is standing beside him. Not close enough to touch. Present, his voice, when it comes, has the particular quality of a man who has spent 2 days reckoning with something enormous and has arrived at the precise language for one part of it. You don't have to carry that memory alone anymore. Anakin looks at the lava for another moment. When he answers, it is with the flat, certain delivery he reserves for things he has thought through to their foundations. No, I think I do. A pause. I think carrying it is the point. A man who forgets what he almost became isn't healed. He's just. His jaw tightens. Briefly, waiting to become it again. Obi-Wan receives this. He doesn't argue it. He doesn't offer a philosophical counterpoint or a code-adjacent reframe. He stands beside Anakin on the ridge above the lava flow and receives what was said as what it is, a man's considered conclusion about the architecture of his own survival, reached from the inside, not available for revision from the outside. The heat presses on both of them. The smoke above the flow turns and turns in the volcanic thermals, slow and enormous. Anakin reaches into his tunic. He produces 2 objects, one in each hand. Small, dense, geometric, the specific aesthetic of Sith construction, which runs to dark crystal matrices and angular housing, and the particular quality of objects designed to outlast their makers. One is Palpatine's personal record, decades of Sith history, operational planning, the documentation of a 1,000-year conspiracy reaching its culmination in the career of one carefully cultivated boy from Tatooine. The other is older. The housing is different, more worn, the crystal matrix slightly different in geometry, the work of a hand that was not Palpatine's. Darth Plagueis's Sith alchemy research. Everything Palpatine used to build the architecture of Anakin's fear. The promise of death's conquest, the manipulation of grief into a lever, the specific door that a specific frightened young man was walked up to and shown at exactly the right moment in exactly the right emotional state. The research that made the promise seem possible. The foundation that the entire dark side manipulation of Anakin Skywalker was built upon. He holds them both over the lava flow. Obi-Wan looks at them. His voice carries the specific quality of a man who is about to say the reasonable thing and already knows it is going to lose. Those could be valuable intelligence. The Council should have the opportunity to. The Council should never have to know that Plagueis's research almost worked on me. Anakin's eyes are on the holocrons, not avoiding Obi-Wan's face, genuinely looking at the objects, the way you look at something before you release it. No one should ever be offered this particular door, not ever again. A breath. There is no Jedi in the Order I would trust to hold this research and not eventually wonder. And wondering is how it starts. Obi-Wan is quiet. He understands. The reasonableness of his own position does not escape him. The intelligence value is real. The Council's right to make informed decisions about Sith artifacts is real. And the thing Anakin is describing is also real. The specific danger of knowledge that operates by being known, that does its damage in the act of being understood, that makes the next person who reads it slightly more available to the same manipulation. Some doors are better destroyed than locked. He nods. Once, Anakin opens his hands. The holocrons fall. Mustafar takes them immediately, the way Mustafar takes everything, without comment, without drama, without the formality of acknowledgement. The lava simply receives them. 1 second they are falling, the next they are not falling, the next there is no visual evidence they existed at all. 1,000 years of Sith knowledge, the complete record of Palpatine's personal archive. Plagueis's death-cheating research, gone in the time it takes the eye to track a falling object and lose it in the flow. Not dramatic destruction, quiet erasure. The dark legacy of Darth Vader, the version who would have hunted Jedi across 3 decades, who would have built an empire in the name of fear, who would have walked into a room full of children with a lightsaber, dissolves before it can begin. Not in battle, not in sacrifice. In 2 objects falling into lava on a volcanic moon, released by hands that are still real. The flow moves over the place where they landed and continues with complete indifference. Anakin stands at the ridge for another moment. The phantom pain sits in his nervous system, the suit's weight, the respirator's rhythm, the specific proprioceptive memory of a body configured for survival rather than living. He lets it sit. He doesn't push it away. He doesn't try to replace it with the sensation of his real body, his real lungs, his real hands. He holds both simultaneously the way he decided on this ridge that he would hold both. The ghost and the man. The memory and the present. The knowledge of what he almost was alongside the daily decision to be something else. This is the carrying. This is the point of it. He takes one more long breath of Mustafar's terrible air, sulfur and burning rock, and the mineral sharpness of a world that operates entirely outside the range of human preference. He turns away from the lava bank. He does not look back. Obi-Wan falls into step beside him without being asked, the way he always has, the way he will continue to for as long as they are both walking. They move across the waste rock toward the landing pad, 2 figures against the orange-lit smoke of Mustafar's sky, the lava flowing behind them with complete indifference to what just happened above it. The ghost of Darth Vader stood on that ridge. It felt nothing. Because it was already gone. Because it had never had to exist at all. The council chamber is fuller than it has been since the war began. Masters recalled from the field, some still carrying the particular quality of men and women who have not fully decompressed from active theaters. The hypervigilance, the tendency to position near exits, the reflex of scanning a room before settling into it. The surviving members of the strike team that went to the Chancellor's office. Obi-Wan, freshly returned from Mustafar, standing to one side with the composed attention of a man who has been through enough in the past 72 hours to have burned through his supply of surprise. The morning light through the chamber's curved windows is clean and full, the kind of light that arrives without apology, and it fills the room with something that the chamber has not had in years. The quality of ordinary morning, arriving on schedule, unconcerned with crisis. Outside the temple windows, the hollow net is no longer running Mace Windu's frame. Padmé's counter-offensive with Bail Organa took 6 hours and no casualties. The Senate floor, which Mace Windu had intended as a stage for the Jedi assassination narrative, became instead the venue where Senator Amidala of Naboo presented holocron records recovered from the Chancellor's own office safe. Records confirming Sith identity. Records of decades of Senate manipulation. The specific documentation of a conspiracy that had been running longer than most of the senators present had been in office. The vote to shelve Mace Windu's Order 66 contingency and open a formal investigation passed in the early morning hours. Mace Windu, stripped of his primary weapon, is negotiating his own political survival through council who understand that cooperating with history is less costly than opposing it. The emerging HoloNet narrative is Sith conspiracy, Republic survival, democratic resilience. It is not the whole story. It is enough. Anakin stands in the center of the chamber. He is not wearing his best robes. He came as he is. Field robes that have seen Mustafar's volcanic heat and Coruscant's night infrastructure, and the interior of a shuttle cockpit during a conversation that was harder and more necessary than anything he has done in either of his lifetimes. His hair is slightly longer than regulation. He has the look of a man who has not slept enough and has stopped caring about that particular fact. He came as he is. The chamber settles into the specific quality of attention that formal Jedi proceedings require, not the busy attention of a strategic briefing, but the weighted, deliberate attention of an institution preparing to reckon with itself. 12 seats in a circle, most of them occupied, the morning light across the stone floor. Anakin looks at the circle of faces and does not perform composure. He simply stands. I have violated the code. His voice carries to every corner without being raised. Not a confession in the sense of a man seeking absolution, a statement in the sense of a man establishing facts before a proceeding that deserves them. I have been married for 2 years. My wife is pregnant with twins. I will not dissolve that marriage to remain a Jedi, and I will not ask you to pretend the code doesn't say what it says. A pause, not for effect, because the next sentence requires its own space. I have served the Order and the Republic to the best of my ability. I am resigning with respect for what this order was meant to be, even when it wasn't. He bows. The bow is deep and unhurried and genuine, the bow of a man who means the respect it communicates regardless of what comes next. He straightens. He waits. Ki-Adi-Mundi speaks first. This is not a surprise. Ki-Adi-Mundi is the kind of man who speaks first in institutional proceedings, because he has always known, precisely and without internal conflict, where he stands relative to doctrine. His position now is the same as it has always been. His voice carries no cruelty. He is not a cruel man, but it carries the particular weight of absolute conviction that has not yet encountered the specific experience capable of revising it. The code is not conditional. His eyes move across the chamber, including the other masters in the statement before returning to Anakin. It does not contain an exception for service rendered, however significant that service may be. The prohibition on attachment exists because the Council and every master before this Council understood what attachment produces. We have seen it produce exactly what the code predicted. The Jedi Order cannot hold itself together if its central ethical commitments are negotiable. No one interrupts. Ki-Adi-Mundi's position is internally coherent, and the chamber knows it. The code says what it says. His reading of it is not wrong. His reading of it is also not the only thing true in this room, and the room is waiting for someone to say so. Mace Windu has been sitting in his chair with his hands on its arms and his eyes on the middle distance, and when he speaks, the chamber reorganizes its attention the way chambers do when a person who does not speak lightly begins. He does not look at Ki-Adi-Mundi. He does not look at Anakin. He looks at the floor, then up at the windows, then at the circle of faces around him, and his voice has the specific quality it gets when Mace Windu is saying something he arrived at through hard thinking rather than fast thinking. Slower, more deliberate, each word placed with the care of a man who knows the ground he is crossing. We teach that attachment leads to the dark side. A pause. I have spent the last 2 days considering whether it is attachment that leads to the dark side, or whether it is secrecy, and shame, and isolation that we have systematically created by treating love as a disease. He lets that exist in the room for a moment. Anakin Skywalker did not fall because he loved someone. He almost fell because we gave him no legitimate way to love her. His eyes move to Ki-Adi-Mundi, and what moves through them is not argument, but something more uncomfortable, the recognition of shared complicity. I refuse to expel a man for loving his wife when the alternative future his own memory has shown us demonstrates precisely what our current system produces. The silence after this is long. Ki-Adi-Mundi does not respond immediately. He looks at the floor. He is, whatever his public position, an honest man, and what he is doing privately in this moment is what honest men do when a true thing has been said that conflicts with a position they hold. He is sitting with it, feeling its weight, checking whether his architecture can accommodate it. He does not speak again. Yoda's chair is at the chamber's far curve from the windows. He has not spoken. He has been watching, not in the passive way, but in the way that a being of 900 years watches, when they understand that what is happening in front of them is the kind of thing that happens once across many generations, and requires full witness. His eyes have moved from face to face, from Anakin to Mace to Ki-Adi-Mundi, and back, with the specific quality of attention that is not managing toward a conclusion, but receiving everything with genuine openness. When he speaks, it is brief. This is not because the moment is small. It is because 9 centuries have taught him that the largest things require the fewest words, and that the words he is about to say have been assembled from a reckoning that has been ongoing since a 22-year-old knight, with the Force signature of a redeemed soul, stood in a chancellor's office and dropped his lightsaber. He has been wrong about things in his life. Not often. Not catastrophically, not in ways visible to the Order. But here, in the specific way he counseled a frightened boy to release his fear, without offering a living relationship inside which that release was possible, in the particular failure of wisdom correctly stated and humanly insufficient, he has been wrong in a way that almost cost the galaxy everything. He is 900 years old, and he is still learning. This is not a failure. This is the thing he would have told any student. He sits with it the way he would tell any student to sit with difficulty. Completely, without flinching, without rushing toward resolution. Taught many things, I have. His voice is its usual register, low, weighted with the particular gravity that centuries produce. Correct, many of them were, but applied without wisdom, correctness becomes a different kind of failure. His eyes move to Anakin. Not the eyes of an institution assessing a case. The eyes of a very old being looking at a very specific person who is standing in front of him, because every circumstance of his life was designed to ensure he never would. Anakin Skywalker. Saved us, you did, from a Sith Lord, and from ourselves. Refuse your resignation, the Council does. A breath. The chamber is completely still. Grant you the rank of Jedi Master, the Council does. And begin to ask, we must, whether the code as practiced has been wiser than the force it claims to serve. What follows is not a dramatic overhaul. The resolution that the Council passes in the next hour is a small document. 2 paragraphs. It does not rewrite the code. The code is what it is, and has been what it is for 1,000 years, and the Council is not yet ready to revise it at the level of text. What it does is restore a distinction that generations of institutional simplification had flattened into invisibility. The original prohibition was never on love. It was on possessive, fear-driven, desperate attachment, the kind that chains a Jedi to outcomes they cannot accept losing. That makes them available to the manipulation of anyone who threatens those outcomes. The resolution restores the difference between attachment and love, between fear-driven clinging and the open wisdom-guided acknowledgement that Jedi are not monks, but guardians, and that guardians who have actually lived understand what they are protecting in ways that guardians who have only studied it do not. It is a small document. It will change everything. The ceremony is not elaborate. No announcement to the temple. No formal convocation of the full order. Obi-Wan steps forward from where he has been standing to one side, and he carries the Jedi Master's braid in his hand, and his face has the expression of a man who has spent 10 years knowing something that he was afraid to say plainly, and has been vindicated in the belief before he fully finished saying it. He places the braid himself. His hands are steady. His eyes, for a moment, are not. Not with grief. Not with pride exactly. With something larger than both, that he doesn't have a word for, and doesn't need one. He steps back. He looks at Anakin. The look says everything that the cockpit over Mustafar made possible for them to say, and does not repeat any of it, because it doesn't need to. Anakin Jedi Master Skywalker stands in the center of the council chamber in his imperfect robes with the morning light across the stone floor, and the circle of masters around him, and what is in his chest is not triumph. Triumph implies an adversary. There was no adversary here worth the name. What is in his chest is something quieter. He walks out of the council chamber into the temple hallway. The temple is intact. The stone is clean and old and warm in the morning light. Somewhere down the corridor, a group of initiates is being led through a training sequence. Their voices carry, young and overlapping, the sound of children who do not know how close they came to having no future in which to grow into themselves. Their force presences register to him as small, warm flames, distinct, individual, each one carrying the specific luminous quality of a life in its early stages, still discovering what it is. He stops. He puts his hand flat against the stone wall. The surface is cool and slightly rough under his palm, real stone, ancient stone, the kind that carries the accumulated presence of the thousands of people who have walked this building across 10,000 years. He can feel the living force in it, not the force as a tool, not the force as a warning system or a combat advantage. The force as the thing it actually is underneath all of those applications, the current that runs through everything, that connects the stone and the initiates and the old masters and the morning light coming through the windows at the end of the corridor into one continuous living system. He has been in this temple as its destroyer. Standing in it as its guardian feels like breathing for the first time. The Republic is not fixed. It is not supposed to be fixed yet. It is in the specific condition of a thing that has been broken for so long that the people who were sustaining it through the breaking have only recently been able to stop and look at the full extent of the damage. Mace Windu, stripped of leverage and facing a historical record that will not be kind to him regardless of cooperation, turned state's evidence with the particular efficiency of a man who understands that the only asset he has left is information. The Senate Reform Commission, chaired by Bail Organa with the particular quality of careful determination that Bail Organa brings to every task that matters, has been in session for 3 weeks. Its work will take years. The direction is right. Padmé Amidala Skywalker. The name has been public for 2 weeks now. A media event that consumed 3 days of HoloNet coverage and then settled into the category of complicated but explicable that the Republic's free press is better at processing than its political institutions, is leading the Constitutional Revision Working Group from her Senate office. She is doing this at 8 months pregnant because Padmé Amidala will stop governing when they pry the stylus from her cold, unconscious hands, and possibly not even then. Her staff has adapted. Her colleagues have adapted. The Republic is, slowly, imperfectly, with the lurching momentum of democratic institutions that have survived something they should not have survived, and are determined to be worthy of that survival. Adapting, Anakin submitted the leave request formally, through proper channels, with the correct documentation and the appropriate signatures. This took him 20 minutes and he found it deeply satisfying. The particular satisfaction of doing a small bureaucratic thing correctly, as a demonstration to himself that he is, in fact, the kind of person who does small bureaucratic things correctly now. 1 month. He and Padmé are going to Varakino. On the transport, she sleeps against his shoulder. The cabin is quiet. The other passengers are strangers who do not know who is sitting in row 7, which is exactly how Anakin requested it. Civilian transport. Nothing official. Just 2 people and their luggage and the steady hum of a ship in hyperspace doing the ordinary work of moving people from one place to another. Her head is warm against his shoulder. Her breathing is the slow, deliberate breathing of a woman whose body has decided that sleep is now a logistical priority regardless of what her mind would prefer to be doing. He doesn't move. He keeps his arm very still and his shoulder exactly where it is and lets her sleep. Through the porthole. Hyperspace blue. He can feel the twins. This is new. Not new as in recently developed, but new as in recently permitted, recently attended to, recently allowed to be the extraordinary thing it actually is, instead of a thing he noted and set aside. 2 presences in the Force, small and specific and already distinct from each other. One of them, Luke, he knows Luke the way he knows his own hands, carries a particular quality of open curiosity, a reaching outward quality, like a question continuously being asked. The other, Leia, contained even now, even here, even before she has words, carries the beginning of the composure that will one day be her most remarkable feature, a quality of watchful readiness that seems almost impossible in someone who has not yet been born. 2 small flames, luminous and warm, like holding 2 stars in open palms. Varakino in late season. The lake country in the weeks before the cooler months settle in carries a specific quality of light, lower angle, longer shadows. The gold of the afternoon slightly deeper and more amber than summer's clean brightness. The retreat sits above the water on its foundations, unchanged. The architecture that has stood here for generations doing what good architecture does, simply being present, accommodating the life that arrives within it without requiring anything in return. The medical droids are already set up in the main suite. The equipment is good. Padmé did not argue about this particular preparation, which tells Anakin more about how she is actually feeling than anything she has said. The windows of the suite look out over the water, and in the late afternoon the light comes through them in long horizontal bars that move slowly across the floor as the hours pass. This is everything the alternative was not. He does not say this aloud. He files it in the same place he files all of the comparisons, the accounting of what is, against what was going to be, and simply stands in the room that is warm and properly equipped, and overlooking a lake on a planet that is still alive, and breathes. Padmé holds his hand through all of it. This is the fact that organizes the experience. Whatever else is true, the medical droids moving with professional efficiency, the light shifting across the floor, the sounds that are not sounds he has words for, the particular suspended quality of hours that contain the absolute before and the absolute after with nothing in between. She holds his hand, and he holds hers, and neither of them lets go. The first cry is outraged. He is placed in Anakin's arms 36 seconds after arrival, red-faced and furious at the indignity of existence, screaming his objection to the transition from one state of being to another with the full commitment of a person who will always be this direct about what he finds unacceptable. Luke Skywalker, 36 seconds old. Already himself, completely, in the specific way that some people are completely themselves from the very beginning. Anakin holds him with the total body carefulness of a man who is aware, with every nerve, of what this child becomes. The hands, his real hands, his flesh hands, the ones that held lightning on a marble floor 3 weeks ago, hold this small person with the deliberate gentleness of someone who knows the exact weight of what they are carrying. Then, Leia, quieter than her brother from the first moment. She arrives with the particular quality of a person who is already deciding how she feels about things before announcing those feelings, who is already, at 60 seconds of life, conducting some interior assessment of her situation before committing to a response. She will lead a rebellion. She will hold it together through things that would break most people through sheer force of that interior composure that is present in her even now, even here, even at 60 seconds. He holds them both, one in each arm. Hey. His voice is very quiet. The suite is full of sound, the droids, the equipment cycling down, Padmé's breathing, but his voice is quiet in the way that the most important things are quiet, which is not about volume but about the quality of attention underneath it. It's me. It's your father. He looks down at them. Luke has stopped screaming. He is now examining the situation with the same open curiosity his Force presence carries, taking inventory. Leia is watchful. You don't know me yet, but I already. His throat closes. Not from grief, from the specific physical effect of being too full of something for the body's channels to manage. He waits. He starts again. I already know you. And you are so much better than I was. He looks at Luke, then at Leia, then at both of them, at these two small, complete persons who exist right now, who are real, who are here. Both of you. You're going to be extraordinary. Padmé is watching his face. She has been watching his face for years, learning its language, and what is on it right now is something she has never seen before, and will spend the rest of her life being glad she is alive to see. She reaches up and touches his arm, her hand over his, all of them connected. Obi-Wan arrived the evening before. He is here ostensibly to ensure the political security of the transition. Technically true, in the way that many things Obi-Wan does are technically true, while also being something else entirely. He spent the evening on the terrace reading, which is what Obi-Wan does when he is managing significant emotion. He finds something to do with his hands and his eyes, and lets the rest of himself process in private. Ahsoka arrived this morning. Her message said only, Padmé told me where you were. Don't tell the council I'm not on Shilly. She is not on Shilly. She is in the kitchen of the Varakino retreat making tea, and pointedly not acknowledging that she has been in the hallway outside the suite for the past 4 hours. When Anakin emerges, both infants still in his arms, Padmé resting behind him, the afternoon light gold across everything, Obi-Wan is in the corridor with the expression of a man who does not know how to be an uncle, but has decided this is not going to stop him from trying. He holds Luke with a carefulness that mirrors Anakin's own, the specific carefulness of someone encountering a small person for the first time and being unwilling to admit how significant the encounter is. Ahsoka holds Leia. She says nothing for almost a full minute. She looks at this small person, at Leia's watchful composure, at her dark eyes already conducting their assessment, and the expression on Ahsoka's face is not one she shows often. Not soft, exactly solved, as if something that has been an open question is in the process of answering itself. The following morning. Anakin is on the balcony before anyone else wakes. The sky is that particular pre-dawn dark that is already slightly lighter than true night. The lake invisible below, the mountains invisible behind. The world in the process of becoming visible again after hours of simply being present in the dark. He holds a cup of tea. This detail earns its weight from everything around it. A man who has worn armor for 23 years in a future that no longer exists, standing on a balcony in the lake country with a cup of tea, waiting for the sunrise. It comes slowly. The way Naboo's sunrises come, amber light on the mountains first, the highest peaks catching it while the lake is still dark, and then the progression downward. The light descending the mountain faces with the deliberate pace of something that has been doing this every morning since long before anyone was here to watch it. And the water going from black to dark blue to the specific deep gold that belongs only to this hour in this place. He stands with it. Inside, the twins, sleeping, their force presences like small warm flames in the adjacent room. Padmé, asleep, her presence the familiar warmth that has been the fixed point of his interior landscape for years, and is now permitted to be that openly, without shadow, without the architecture of secrecy pressing down on it. Obi-Wan somewhere in the house. Ahsoka somewhere in the house. The force around this place, on this morning, clear, warm, present. Not the force as a battlefield tool, not the force as a warning system or a combat advantage or the medium through which danger arrives. Just the force, the living force, the thing that flows through everything and connects it, the water, the mountains, the light, the people sleeping inside, the man standing on the balcony with a cup of tea watching the sun come up over a lake, on a planet that is still alive. He had spent most of his life waiting for something to be taken from him. He had spent 23 years on the other side of that terror, the ruin it made of him. And now he was standing on a balcony on Naboo with real air in his real lungs, and 2 children sleeping 20 feet behind him, and the sun was coming up, and nothing, not the Sith, not the darkness, not the unbearable weight of what he had survived, and almost become, nothing was coming to take this from him. Because he was the only thing that ever could have, and he had already chosen otherwise, the chosen one kept his promise. The prophecy was fulfilled not in fire and darkness, as it had almost been, but here, on a balcony in the lake country, in the gold of an ordinary morning, on a planet that was still alive. Anakin Skywalker put down his tea, went inside, and picked up his daughter. The Force was at peace. Let us know what you'd like to see next. The end.